perhaps they're prepared to counter that with really strong early mages.
Yeah, well, we'll see here as we're going to go ahead and load on into Champion Select for our final game of the regular season tiebreakers. Hong Kong Attitude on your blue side, J-Team on the red, and it starts off with the Cinnaband coming out from HKA.
With Jimian now performing such a wonderful game earlier, I feel like Zoe would be a contested pick. Jimian had MVP earlier in the Zoe, and Kyorb seemed to really fancy the Zoe pick. So I wonder whether or not HKA and J-Team will let that slip into the draft.
All right, so we actually do see the Aphelios band J-Team. They watched the previous game and said, you know what, Eminem's kind of a monster when he isn't targeted or anything, so let's not give over the Aphelios here. Meanwhile, HKA going to target a little bit more toward Hana, as that is going to be the least being banned out.
And it seems to be standard so far. I wonder if the Olaf ban will come out at some point, as the Ornn pick has been more of a not an insta choice for most of these teams now. But for HKA, definitely they were able to maximize that Ornn pick, so we'll have to see if J-Team decides to ban that out as well.
All right, so Kalista not available here for Lil V. Like you mentioned, we get to now see whether or not they wish to ban out, once again, another AD carry, as that's now going to start limiting the pool. Misfortune is still up and available, and that's often been a fallback there for Eminem and for the side of HKA when they go for those late-game compositions, and instead it's going to be the Renekton actually being banned out away from 3Z.
Very interesting. As HKA, I wonder what they will decide to pick up. Either Olaf was now open, or perhaps the Rek'Sai, which perhaps has been one of those things that Holo and Hana would play. But then again, Ornn is open, Misfortune is open, so get that for Eminem.
There we go. So Misfortune going to get locked in on the side of J-Team. Lil V will often just fall back to something a little bit more utility, as well as can be that late game carry the team needs, as it's going to be the Varus getting locked in.
Yep, a lot of utility and as well as safety if you do lock in the Tom Kench. Quite flexible in builds as well. You can go for the long range poke build or as well as the auto on hit build, which is quite flexible, so locking this early is not going to hurt them too much. And Wukong is actually open, so they're going to secure that one for rest, or maybe for Kyorb.
Yeah, we could see where this Wukong is going to end up going, as it did make its way through the first ban phase. I do believe it got banned out last game for the side of HKA. What do they wish to try and answer with here, as we'll possibly see? I doubt that's the plan there, HKA. Don't play with my heart. I would love to see a Yi. I actually would hate to see a Yi, to be honest, but a Maokai. All right, so it's going to be a monkey smacking away at a tree in top lane, possibly.
That would be possible, as I'm not sure. I think the Maokai Misfortune combo isn't that common, but it's perfect though if you manage to get that root in and the bullet. It's a perfect setup for the bullet time. So, but with this, Aatrox can still go for Jimian. But on the other hand, you do have that Trundle that has been very active. Once very strong for that level 3 and level 6 as well.
All right, so Trundle getting locked in. Now for J-Team, what do they wish to go with? As jungle already being shown by HKA. Looks like J-Team are looking to just match it, as the Gragas is going to be hovered and locked in for Hana.
Really nice decision coming from J-Team, as for Hana, this is his third time using the Gragas. Usually would fall back to the Sejuani, but this time around it will be for the Gragas. So at this point, it's just a lot of disrupt, good disengage, and as well as early level 3 with the body slam combo and everything else. But yeah, this is strong team fight coming from J-Team at the moment.
Decent team fight on both sides. HK, they still have themselves the Misfortune and Maokai. We gotta remember, last season it was the Gragas Yasuo combo that was ridiculous, especially when you could pair it up possibly now with the Wukong, who could also get the double knockups off the ultimate. So there is some options there, and maybe, there's been some secret Kyorb strats coming out where he's been popping up on the Yasuo and solo queue. Azir, though, is going to be banned out here by Jimian, so you won't have access to that, along with that Syndra. And now for the side of HKA, also going to get rid of the Kiana.
Yeah, I believe J-Team played that once against Resurgence, the Gragas Yasuo combo. But that was Nesty in the mid lane at that time. Um, yeah, I don't think they're going to lock this in. You did mention that potentially there could be a fun game, but LeBlanc is actually open in towards the draft. So this is such a destructive combo coming from the jungle and the mid lane for J-Team.
Okay, so we get the LeBlanc getting locked in, and then, ooh, again, HKA, you can have a fun game. I don't want you to have that much fun, though, as you're looking at possibly a Shaco getting locked in. No, it'll be instead the Corki in the mid lane, likely here for Jimian.
And this is going to be the third time rather, we're going to be seeing a Corki. And again, I will not assume any of the hovers just yet. We did mention that they can have a fun game. They're all secured already for the playoffs, but Nautilus sounds about right. Wing had a phenomenal performance on the Thresh earlier and enabled a lot of key hooks for Engage. Meanwhile, J-Team, Tahm Kench went through, and that will be a perfect pair for the Varus for a safe lane.
All right, now looking here, though, possibly... No, they were thinking an L-Star, but instead, like you mentioned, it's going to be the Taric getting locked in, so the Cosmic Radiant's going to come down and provide some safety for the team. Maybe pair it onto the Wukong if he wants to get into the middle of the fight. Decent team fight on both sides. You're mainly relying on the Maokai and Misfortune on the side of HKA with some burst up front damage from the Corki. Kind of very similar to what J-Team have, except a lot more disruption when you're going to be running this Wukong and Gragas.
Yeah, and it's a little bit worrisome considering that Misfortune later on to the fights will heavily rely on key bullet times, and with so much disrupt, so much displacement, it is quite easy to cancel that key bullet time when it comes to the fights.
There we go. So got ourselves locked in. Hong Kong Attitude and J-Team currently fighting for 7th place when it comes to the standings to get a little bit higher seeding into the playoffs, as this is our final tiebreaker for the night. And then we can set our sights toward the postseason and get ourselves nice and set for some good best-of-3s and some best-of-5s also. That's what I've been waiting for personally. I love the best-of-1 format when it comes to the regular season for the double round robin. It makes every game matter, but then we get to see some evolution of team strategies when it comes to the draft, when it comes to players possibly growing over the course of a single series. That's what I like to see in playoffs, and I can't wait for next weekend.
Very hard same, very hard same. It's going to be very exciting for sure, as, again, you're right. It's about that story into the series and seeing how they evolve when it comes to next weekend.
There we go. Loading onto the Rift here, our final game. We'll get to see some monkey action in the top lane from Rest. We see Nesty back into his support role as they are going to continue to try out Kiorb in the mid lane here on the side of J-Team, trying to give him a little bit more extra experience before we get into the playoffs. Final game of the PCS regular season underway.
And with HKA, again, they just came off. They've already warmed up, came off from a really nice and convincing and dominating win against Liab. And therefore, they're feeling the energy still. They have that momentum going on for them, as J-Team, in the meantime, though, had to adjust with the different roster changes with Kiorb in the mid lane.
We see J-Team actually stacking up as 5 toward the top side of the map here. Looks like they're going to be able to sneak themselves into the brush. Maybe seeing whether or not 3Z or anybody's going to come over and have some fun as Rest gets that quick strike off on the Wukong. Hollow's also going to come on down. Here comes Nesty, though, maybe showing himself just slightly early as Hollow was still collapsing, but Rest still trying to go for that kill on 3Z. Over the wall, Kiorb goes. That's first blood over to J-Team. Starting off with a spicy invade as Eminem has to get back to safety underneath the second-tier tower.
And Kiorb, there's only one flash consumed from that engage, and that is actually a pretty sweet deal with getting that kill. And Hollow will just munch on towards that last ward that J-Team has placed. Rest still sticking around. Replace the ward that was lost.
Unfortunately, he won't get back to base. He's not able to spend that first blood cold. You know, he maybe like to get a little bit extra damage, maybe a long sword and some pots. Who knows? Instead, he'll just stay up in this top lane as Rest even trying to path into the brush. The minions are already there, Mr. Wukong. So 3Z already going to be down 1 death. We'll see whether or not Holo looks to try and come up there to maybe try and equalize that lane before the Wukong becomes a bit of a pain to deal with.
Absolutely, as again, Trundle pretty strong as well, with a nicely timed pillar, and then you have an easy route from 3Z, so it's gonna definitely help set up topside and relieve the pressure just in case things get a little bit too sticky, because again, Rest got that early first blood for J-Team.
And already got himself that level 2 immediately. You can see he's trying to get a decent amount of damage onto 3Z. 3Z naturally, of course, has that extra bit of regen in his passive, if he's able to, of course, get some abilities off. So not end of the world for him, as he'll be just farming underneath the tower. Oh, that's another minion. Oh, no, that's another minion. 3Z ended up missing 5 minutes there. That's a feels bad as a Maokai. That's a big feels bad, as Holo's going to go ahead and start up his second buff, as Hana was maybe looking toward the top lane, but unfortunately that's still going to get pressed in here by Rest.
And considering the fact that 3Z doesn't have flashes yet, Hana still kept his from earlier. It wasn't needed, so the flash body slam combo would be definitely possible to initiate a fight here. As with that said, though, Jimian will choose to have his wave pushing towards him instead, as he wouldn't want to be open for a potential gank from Hana. But you do have the Valkyrie at least, but vision-wise, it's still not going to be, he's not going to be comfortable at all.
And that mid lane matchup of the Corgi against the LeBlanc of Kyorb, as Hana is actually going to get invaded upon. Never feels good if you lose your blue buff as a Gragas, but it looks like he'll be able to secure it, even missing out on the smite there. Here comes the rest of J-Team, though, and Predator's going to be popped into the flash body slam, and there it goes into the stun, and now Holo going to get taken on down there as Lil V finds himself a kill.
Nicely done. And this is what we were talking about. You know, J-Team has a solid lineup, and it's so scary because not only do they have this air of mystery with the addition to Kyorb in the mid lane, but it's also been Lil V that's been so consistent. And if he gets on ahead, that's going to be scary. So Hana did a magnificent flash body slam, and there is literally no escape for, you know, the side of HKA if you get caught on that one. And Wing actually used a flash for that. But unfortunately, Holo had to fall.
And there you go, too, with Hana on his first back. He actually went to just rush his boots. You always love getting the Predator immediately. That's why he was actually so late getting to his blue buff. So with that, J-Team find themselves another kill. It's going to go on to their marksman in the bot lane, and all going to plan here if you're on the side of J-Team to start things off before 5 minutes with 2 kills in their pockets.
In good news, Eminem didn't have to use any of his summoners, so that is good news, definitely, when it comes to either a potential dragon take, considering that HKA, or actually the game is slowly going towards that level 6, which will be quite explosive, especially on the side of J-Team.
So here we go now. Is 3Z at least going to be able to get this push up and toward the top side? Rest ended up going back to base, didn't actually teleport, so he does have teleport advantage for the next couple of minutes, as 3Z had to use it to get back into lane right away. So he'll continue farming. That does allow the Maokai, though, to get some vision down alongside Holo, who's already gone for the invade, trying to track where Hana is in the jungle. So all's good. He is also actually running Predator on the Trundle. That is new to me. I've not seen a Predator Trundle in quite a long time. J-Team, though, going to go ahead and start up the Mound Drake.
Yeah, it will definitely help trying to get that max range pillar to start a fight, considering that especially mid lane.
Yeah, especially in mid
side
lane.
Of Jimian.
Yeah, especially in mid lane there. You can at least force out the Valkyrie from Jimian. As there we go. Dragon is going to get secured here by J-Team. And now possibly looking for a play onto the bot lane, but they are caught out by that ward, so Hana is going to be tracked as he heads back up through the river.
Yeah, J-Team getting that first dragon of the game, but yeah, it does work on Predator if you do want to get that advantage laying down that pillar. Considering it will be obvious if 3Z moves a little bit forward to get that root range, then Rest will most likely read the scenario and okay, this Maokai is moving a little bit more aggressive. Holo is probably nearby. So it does help if the Trundle will initiate with that Predator instead. And also helping to reach the back line for sure. especially with Lil V going to be far, way behind in enemy lines.
Well, speaking of behind enemy lines, look at J-Team. They just put down a bunch of vision into the jungle of HKA. So unfortunately now for Holo, he's going to be easily tracked as he was actually caught out over on his Krugs, and that will allow J-Team to just cycle over and go for the steal of the blue buff. Try and deny that away from Jimian, so you won't have that free just rocket rain coming out from the Corki. That does allow the Scuttle, though, to be secured here by HKA. Maybe look for a possible play toward this bot lane, but still waiting on level 6 of the Misfortune and Nautilus.
Yeah, and at that point, you're right. It has given a lot of information for the side of J-Team, and even stealing a lot of things coming from Holo, the blue buff of Jimian, and as well as the rest of the jungle. And with that, he will just find out now that he's not able to trade anything off of the map except for the Scuttle.
Yeah, could maybe... Well, Scuttle isn't going to be spawning here for a little bit. Could at least get some vision down onto the Rift Herald, but... Yeah, that's a little unfortunate, having to run through your jungle only to find it all taken away. So, J-Team still getting pressure here, but Hong Kong Attitude have themselves set up possibly for this Rift Herald, and Rest, if he's not careful, could be collapsed upon. Hana, though, is nearby, still not on level 6 just yet. He will get it, though, off this camp, so J-Team will have some tools available to them if this fight occurs.
It's perfect, too.
Close.
They saw the support roaming in. Coming from HKA, so they did match that back with Nesty as well, especially that Rift Herald is the target for HKA. So right now, Lil V doesn't have teleport, so he will not be able to join this fight in time.
But you do have Rest with teleport, and he is nearby on the top lane, but it looks like they just don't want to deal with the possible package that could come out there from Jimian, as he has hit level 8 already, so he's had that available on his first back. So you already see them getting a bit aggressive, and especially I believe there was a buff to the Corki package where he does a little bit extra upfront damage, as that's actually going to be the bullet time coming out just to clear the wave here against Lil V pushing in. And Hana still just tracking the jungle here inside of HKA.
Beautifully done. Coming from J-Team, again, full control, not only stealing that blue buff, but now on the way of stealing this red buff. And J-Team does have priority, so they can join this and just assert dominance over this jungle of HKA.
Yeah, this Trundle now is going to start, unfortunately, he's going to be missing out on a little bit of farm. That does just give Hana more options, as he could also go ahead and take the Raptor camp as well, and it really just slows down this Trundle. He does have level 6, though, so you can see, actually, Hana finally gets caught out. He'll just take the little Raptors at least. A little bit of XP taken away.
Yep. And now we're starting to see pieces of equipment from the side of HK and J-Team. At least you got the Hex Drinker on the side of Jimian, so trying to deny any sort of potential burst from Kyorb, at least to slow down the potential snowball, I suppose, from Kyorb if ever they do manage to find a dive. And that's the reason why you find Jimian always trying to freeze the wave over near his tower, just to not be overextended. But at the same time, you do have that package to catch up and try to roam. But now it's not there anymore.
This is still, I think this is actually one of the most like dark skins in League of Legends, this Corki skin. I have problems with this skin, I'll tell you that right now.
It's so cute!
Yeah, but it's like the dog has a seat into him. Like it's a plain dog.
Oh, that is true.
It's like,
wow.
How do they make the dog? And the dog is obviously alive. It like paddles, or is it like a robot dog that Corki made?
I bet that's actually what it is. Image in my head.
It's maybe it's one of Donger's like super advanced robots. I could believe that. But
you
Dragon,
ruined it. Oh.
Wing, he tried to go for the play. He gets the clone. Rest is going to be forced to flash underneath his tower. They're going to try and go for this dive here. He's going to have the ultimate available, and that's even going to be Eminem showing, as that's now a lot used to try and catch out this Wukong. 3Z is nearby, might be looking to finish off the play. Rest, though, is going to have his cooldown, so he should be able to get back to safety relatively easy. Is going to get rooted up, but again, the clone able to soak up the hook. That's a lot used by HKA. They do have at least the Rift Herald in top lane to try and answer, as the Dragon was still taken by J-Team down on the bot side of the map. Unfortunately, with these turret plates, the resistances of the turret make it rather difficult to take it down if you let Shelly only take a couple plates. And there you go, J-Team able to respond.
Yeah, they're able to defend that one, and as well as HKA not able to get a kill for an extra reward. So Lil V, again, has been left alone all this time, but with Eminem, still, in terms of CS, they're really quite relatively even. So that's what's good for the side of Eminem, considering that Lil V can be a huge monster when it comes to the farming game on the AD carry position. But now, J-Team and HKA, they're very, very even in terms of their movements.
As Kiorb and Hana are going to just soak up the wave in top lane, but still, Jimyon finally gets his first blue buff of the game. Rather nice to have finally on that Corki. And it's kind of just a waiting game here. I feel like for Hong Kong Attitude in particular, you're going to wait for that next package to be available for the Corki, and then maybe you try and fight around one of these objectives, as it's still going to be about 3.5 minutes until we get our next Cloud Drake, and probably about the same when it comes to the Rift Herald.
Very true. And considering that, Jimyon is forced to get that Hex Drinker for a more of a defensive approach against this lane for the LeBlanc, the growth of like getting the Trinity Force spike is kind of halted a little bit coming from Jimyon.
I think if you're right now on the side of J-Team, you'd love to go for a fight, especially, like you mentioned, that Hex Drinker having to be rushed immediately allows Kiorb, who's already gotten the Luden's Echo, to maybe try and go for a play. There's lots of pings coming out here from the side of J-Team, looking to just clear out the vision laid down by Hong Kong Attitude and get ourselves back into a little bit of that just farm game in mid lane, as now the bot lanes have rotated to other sides of the map.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of what we've been seeing in the first few weeks of the PCS. And during the second half, though, of the regular season, a lot of the teams have evolved into a more fight early and then go from there. And with J-Team and HKA right now, they're practically in their comfort zone. And HKA earlier had to definitely adjust with Liab's early triple teleport, but now with HKA, they can sort of rest easy, as they're also fighting against J-Team, who likes to play a little bit reserved here and there.
J-Team, though, can maybe set up here in mid lane, as Hana is sneaking on by, maybe seeing if anybody from the side of HKA will come on over just to clear out the wave, but still not finding anything. Does not have his Predator up, but he will have it in quite a short sec. Kiorb maybe looking for a flank, but again, J-Team not able to find anything, not even able to get a lot of vision down, as HK still has their control boards into the jungle of J-Team.
Yeah, there has been a balance of both defensive and offensive wards from HKA. So if you have information, you definitely know what to do and what to avoid. And both these teams have been laying down a couple of vision, especially at top side, because of Rift Herald. Now HKA is starting this. Rest does have teleport.
Now Rest is going to get first tower of the game, as HK were never able to knock down that tower up in top lane. And like you mentioned, teleport is available, and there it is, going to be the flank. Predator already popped here, and they are just running directly on top of this Wukong, as Rest is going to be able to find the knock-up only on to the Nautilus here. Going to use it once again, going into the back line, gets himself the knock-up onto the Misfortune to interrupt the bullet time. The Tark, though, will fall here, as HK will look to try and turn back the fight. 3Z on top of Rest. Rest trying to jump back on in, has the Conqueror, but not able to heal up enough damage. That's going to be a double kill for the Corki.
HKA feeling the momentum. Rift Herald, though, had to restart, and therefore both of these teams will decide to concede. But at the end of the day, HKA has won that trade. It's a 1-for-2, I believe, in favor of HKA at the time. And with that said, that was a beautiful knock-up, though, coming from Rest. But it wasn't enough, as they're quite separated after all this time. Lil V was on the other side of the wall. He couldn't exactly influence the fight aside from the Q poke. But after that, you need those autos. And the Chain of Corruptions didn't hit. So HKA really got the best deal out of this one.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he's not going lethality Varus, so the Piercing Arrow is pretty much all the damage he was able to do. Couldn't really add much else to the fight, as he is gone on hit. But when you're on the other side of the wall, not a whole lot you're able to accomplish, as J-Team, though, still feeling confident, are going to go ahead and take the third dragon of the game. Now looking at Cloud Soul. But once again, Jimian starts up the Rift Herald here for HKA.
There is vision there for J-Team. They know this is happening.
We're going to come over. Let's see. Get ourselves another fight. Georb. Maybe looking for that flank opportunity. The eye will open back up in a quick sec, and there it is. Hana, though, wants to go in for the full engage. Not able to find it, though. And ST doesn't have his ultimate to try and save this. And the cooldowns aren't really here, though, on the side of J-Team as 3Z finds himself a massive knock-up. Isn't able to finish off any kills, though, and it's going to be a 1-for-1 jungle for top lane.
And that was pretty interesting. I was a little bit worried for HKA. Eminem didn't have mana at the time, but it wasn't really, especially bullet time was up and running. But it wasn't really needed because Hana basically sort of threw himself forward for HKA to burst down. So he started with the flash, but the hook coming from Wing really disrupted Hana. But at the same time, 3Z disrupting the backline as well with that root in, so J-Team was practically distracted.
And there we go, as in the end, HKA, they are able to at least secure the Rift Herald once again. I'd like to see it put down somewhere, as it wasn't able to get the tower actually the first time around. And towers are still pretty even here, and HKA are kind of just, again, in their comfort zone of waiting out for that late game where you're just going to have the consistent DPS coming out of the Corki as well as the Misfortune. And ST is taking photos and selfies in mid lane with his jewels, as all Tarics like to do.
But yeah, definitely HKA has a really nice straight line to success in terms of their spikes. You do have that Triforce already from Jimian, so the fights coming from HKA will actually be pretty painful, especially coming from the big shots, the poke. So it's very versatile on what they want to do. And as well for J-Team though, they're having a difficult time because they weren't able to actually get a lot of assassination kills from Kyorb on this LeBlanc. Good thing though, his 004, he has his Ludens and Sword Boots too, so he will definitely disrupt anyone. The problem is, 3Z has been doing a good job disrupting the backline. So for J-Team, finding that amazing setup with rest for interrupting Eminem would be the sweet spot if they want to win the fight.
Well, it's been rather interesting because we've had a decent amount of like LeBlancs come out when she isn't banned. She's played in 18 of the games, and a lot of time, like, it's a very slow-paced LeBlanc. It's not that solo QS LeBlanc that you see just trying to cause havoc in side lanes. No, they're looking to get that one single assassination during a late-game team fight to try and shut down either this Corki or this Misfortune. Instead, just tries to rack up some assists in the early game to help supplement some of the gold.
Yeah, I believe there are two teams in the PCS that really like to play the LeBlanc in a very aggressive way. It's definitely, you know, Assassin coming from Alpha Esports, paired up with the jungler Cat Jug, and as well as Resurgence Raven, as well with alongside Epic. So the rest of the LeBlancs, as you mentioned, has been a little bit more reserved and just trying to burst someone down in the objective fights as much as they can and rely on the AD carries to finish off the kill.
Well, you look toward HKA, there's so much peel in this composition, you know? You got a Maokai ultimate that can, you know, disengage an entire team fight. You got a Nautilus as well that can just lay down a depth charge just to interrupt. There's a lot of tools here to keep both of these carries safe.
I agree. Considering that the only slippery champion on the side of J-Team would be definitely Kyorb and as well as Rest to some extent. And with that, aside from the peel that HKA has, their engage is actually very, very strong as well. So the wombo combos can be utilized. 3Z with the bullet time, the Maokai ult with the bullet time. So that will indeed be the plan in mind. If the targets are not dead till by then, you do have that Corki for at least poke damage to finish them off, or just Valkyrie into the fight and just deal one combo. You know, the QE auto R, quite painful at the moment for sure. But now Dragon is going to be spawning in a few, so we will see that in action if ever HKA will be able to pull that off.
We'll see here is HKA looking to position themselves Starting to get closer and closer to that magic 35 minutes. They are, on average, the slowest team when it comes to the PCS over the course of this season. So this is the long slugfest that they like to play out here. And usually they try and answer for the second or third dragon. They weren't able to get the second here, and J-Team already a bit late to the party. Rest is going to use his ultimate. Chain of Corruption completely whiffed there, coming out from Lil V. Kyorb into the back line, able to get some damage, and there it is. They finally take down Eminem using all their ultimates, and Holo's also going to get taken on down. And that's the power of that LeBlanc coming out from Kyorb, was able to get the double distortion down on to the Misfortune and take him down. They do lose out on the Drake, but you can see them positioning directly over to the Baron.
Yeah, that's a lot of death timers. That is a lot lost for HKA. And right now, Hong Kong Attitude will not be able to try and contest this Baron. With J-Team timing that really nice Cosmic Radiance in towards the engage, HKA had nowhere to run but take the fight. And of course, with that invulnerability for J-Team, just means that they can't trade correctly, and therefore they win the fight, get the Baron.
And there we go. It's now a 4,000 gold lead for J-Team. At least in the mid lane, they'll be able to trade back a little bit of damage with that Trinity Force Corki. But let's take another look here again. They get the tower, but unfortunately, Eminem's kind of stuck in the pit.
Indeed, it is the setup for that Beyblade again, coming from Res on this Wukong. And with that, you don't have Eminem anymore in towards the fight. So J-Team was still pretty much healthy, and you saw the burst damage coming from Kyorb as well on this LeBlanc.
Now you got a scary rest now on this Wukong, who's picked up his second item. Already has the Black Cleaver as well as the Bork. Still has Summoners up too if he wants to go for a flank and to go for a dive here onto the Misfortune. And we saw with HKA, if they lose either one of these, especially in a mid-game, early-game fight like this, it will end up costing them a lot of damage, and unfortunately they don't have enough built onto the other key member of their composition to try and carry the damage. So with that, it's now a 4,000 gold lead for J-Team. 2 minutes on the Baron buff. But it's back to kind of this slow push in mid as they're trying to set up side lane pressure.
Very true, and HK is just trying to match that as, again, J-Team does have that Baron buff, so they want to slow that down a little bit more. Again, HKA likes to play these long, drawn-out games. Their victories have come off from 35 to 45-minute games, and that is their comfort zone for J-Team, though. Again, this is a newly assembled roster at the end of the season with Nesty back at the support. Kyorb now in mid. Hana looking for an engage here, as Kyorb will just have the time of his life pushing this bottom lane.
Yeah, Kyorb is just getting free push out here, and that's going to be a quick chunk of gold onto the LeBlanc. Actually has finished off the Morello's second item, as Lil V is going to push in the mid lane, and they're getting a lot of freestanding gold off the Rift, and J-Team's starting to grow this gold lead.
Yeah, there's not a lot of decent wave clear, if you will. Like, you do have, you know, Jimmy's Q at least, and as well as sometimes the bullet time is utilized, but you do want to keep that intact just in case J-Team decides to pull the trigger. And yep, Kyorb right now in a very comfy spot. You got Morello's and as well as that Luden. So right now, HKA is very wary of the all-ins from Kyorb with the air quote poke coming from this LeBlanc.
Yeah, it's kind of just stalling out this game here until this Corki can come online. They do at least get the second crit item completed there for Eminem as he picks up his Infinity Edge along with the Essence Reaver. So this Misfortune bullet time is going to start doing a decent chunk of damage, you know, critting on average every second wave. C3Z, though, is going to just try and, you know, keep rest off that jungle camp. Says, let that be. I want to give that on over to my Trundle. And that is going to be the Baron buff timing out here. So J-Team not able to crack open the base or anything. Just a little bit of damage here and there, and a couple towers will net them about a 2,500 gold advantage off that Baron buff.
Indeed, and because of how they've managed to secure and push the waves carefully, they've also taken over the HKA jungle in the form of a lot of vision control. And with that, HKA will indeed have trouble trying to farm out the camps, and as well as the wave, as it's quite difficult to extend a little bit as they have no vision, and they could put themselves at risk from a burst from Kyorb.
And with that, it's also going to allow J-Team to pretty much get inside track onto the Baron pit. You see maybe HKA want to try and get a mid lane push out, but J-Team already setting up for a possible play here as Ward's going to come on down, and that maybe scares off Hong Kong Attitude as they're going to back off here. But Cloud Drake now going to spawn in 10 seconds. J-Team still with the vision control.
And HKA needs to push this wave as they're going to make their way down here at the Dragon. Saplings will be thrown here and there to add a little bit more additional vision and pressure. So J-Team will position themselves at the lower half of this Dragon with Rest looking for a flank here. HKA, very careful.
Has package available on that Corki if he wants to try and dive in onto the fight. That's going to be Maokai ultimate, and Hana actually using his ultimate. Jimian ends up using the package, but guess what? HKA were able to steal away the Drake, and that's going to be the Wukong getting shut down immediately. In comes Kior, but he's way too late, and it's going to be a massive steal coming out from 3Z to actually prevent the Cloud Soul going over to J-Team.
Beautifully done. That was the time for J-Team to get that dragon, secure that dragon soul for them, so as to not wait any longer. Especially you do want to get that Elder Drake as well. But at the same time,
no. Whoa! He ended up stealing it with the ultimate.
Oh,
and Hana he mistimed his smite. That's tragic. Oh, that's one he's going to want to get back. He can't be making that. At least they're making it during the tiebreaker here while they're already in playoffs. But you don't want to make one of those mistakes, especially come next weekend.
Indeed. And it's just one of those things that happens, and it's quite unexpected. It's not even came from a burst of damage, the intentional burst of damage. It just came off from an ult that was meant to disrupt J-Team and not Dragon. But in any case, it is HKA right now. It is slowly climbing towards their favor in terms of game state and which they're comfortable in. And eventually, again, we did mention how as the game progresses, you can opt to build more defensive items against the damage burst coming from Kyorb and the LeBlanc. Therefore, it will be a little bit difficult to sort of get a lot of value as the time progresses on this LeBlanc pick. So you will be heavily reliant on Lil V here on this Varus to get the autos in the team fights.
Yeah, she will have a decent spike once she finishes off the Rabadons, but like kind of after that, it's going to be, it starts to fall off a little bit. It is still up to HKA to at least try and keep Eminem and Jimin safe from the LeBlanc, as they have been able to stall out the bleeding here, as J-Team haven't been able to get much else after that Baron. And speaking of Baron, it is alive, so we do see J-Team go ahead and place down the vision on toward the top side of the map.
They're very sneaky. They like to play around the bait fights, especially around Baron. HK, though, again, is a team that can take this a little bit slow. And considering there's actually vision there for HK around the Baron buff, that's pretty good.
That was Wing almost taking a hook to his death as he's going to check over the wall. We've seen this one before. Chain of Corruption is going to be there into the Wukong. Ultimate Cosmic Radiance comes on down, and Lil V is able to find the kill. Do they actually get Eminem? And yes, they will. And over the wall now, Jimian has to flash away. Nesty wants to follow him on over. There's Lil V now joining on in. It's the shutdown. HK, they've lost both of their main carries. J-Team still 5 members strong.
Nicely done by J-Team. And again, we did mention that there is vision on the Baron area for HKA, but none on that side brush by the river. So at that point, J-Team just had to wait patiently, and they are definitely rewarded. They didn't get that last dragon for the soul, but they managed to eliminate the carries of HKA to get a second Baron for them.
And it's going to get a bit scary here now for Hong Kong Attitude, as it does give now J-Team natural siege power, and they got themselves, of course, that Wukong still will teleport, so he can go into a side lane and just rush in, and that's going to force HKA to have to decide, all right, what do we want to lose? And for J-Team, they could even go ahead and take a very quick fight with the amount of upfront bursts that they have.
Oh, that was Wing actually hesitating as well, whether or not to go back, trying to dodge any sort of possible skill shot, but it wasn't enough. That as there was just too many attempts at that brush, and with that, I just want to commend Rest as well, finding the correct targets and always disrupting Eminem for not able to do anything at all during that fight.
Yeah, unfortunately not able to... Oh, no. This ain't looking good. His Rest is actually maybe able to sneak around here. City gets caught out, and he's actually just going to go ahead and jump on Jimmy, and there it is, a solo kill. That Corki has nowhere to run. Oh, there's a nice little knock up there. Rest still waiting. Does not have his ultimate in time. Bullet Time's going to come out. It's a decent amount of damage, and you can see if they're not able to take down the Misfortune immediately, it can cost them dearly, as now Rest goes on in with Hana actually able to find the double body slam knockup. Eminem's going to get taken on down. Kior finds another kill. Wing gets himself to safety. Unfortunately for HKA, they're dropping members here and there, and it's still 5 members strong with Baron buff for J-Team.
And they wanted to set up for another Dragon Denial. That's what happened, but unfortunately, J-Team was ready to prance, and even putting Rest in a prime position to interrupt Jimmy. And that's a lot of death timers on the side of HKA. Polo trying his best to defend.
Again, a big chunk of damage, though, onto that Trundle. Isn't actually able to find the kill, but J-Team looking to secure 7th place in the standings to get a higher seed into playoffs. Jimmy's going to try and do what he can. Has package available. Ends up using it just to go back into the fountain. But guess what? That's going to be your Nexus falling, and J-Team will finish 7th in the regular season.
What a wonderful game from J-Team. Very solid. It was quite close at the beginning of the match, but at the end of the day, you had Lil V that was untouched. He didn't have any deaths whatsoever, and as Kyorb as well, who got early game assists and managed to slowly creep into that 3 item with Rabadon's Ludens and just Morello. So it's just a lot of damage, and HKA couldn't just really let it be, you know?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's... HKA, their composition, like their average game time is something like 35 minutes. This team likes to play into the very later part of the game. J-Team, though, show up. They say, all right, you know what? We're just going to finish it while we're ahead, and it's a pretty easy composition to pull off here on the side of J-Team. Unfortunately, Eminem, even with that bullet time coming out, still didn't have enough items or damage to actually take down the Wukong even before he went into the stopwatch.
And I really think the Taric ult, rather the Taric pickup, just really denied some sort of the burst damage coming from the side of HKA. And you know, Eminem is holding onto that bullet time instead of releasing it immediately at the most perfect moment. The Cosmic Radiance will just really stop you from just disengaging first. But you know what? Just a lot of dive and a lot of engage and damage coming from J-Team. So HKA had no escape. Yeah,
and with that, HKA, they're just going to be happy enough to actually qualify for the playoffs. That was the overall goal for today, as they were able to take down Liab earlier tonight. And with that, they're going to be able to get at least the 8th seed, so they'll be still in the bottom side of the bracket. And that's one thing both of these teams need to understand, is that they only get 1 series loss when it comes to playoffs, where if they were able to, you know, finish above this placement, they were able to go into the top side of the bracket and drop on down and then play it out to the final. But they're now still in that do-or-die situation when it comes to every series they play in playoffs.
It is going to be tough because, again, lower bracket means you only got 1 chance. And at that point, I feel like HKA has to go through a lot of this during the PCS. They had to see whether or not they have to be tied with Liab or not, and it's just quite. It's a good test for that mental fortitude we've been talking about for the rest of the teams.
Yeah, and there's still those opportunities for, you know, Resurgence and Liab. They get to at least take a little bit of a longer break, you could say, during these playoffs to try and regroup, especially with Resurgence. They showed a lot of promise toward the end of the season, so for them, that's a little bit of a silver lining. You get a little bit of an extra bit of time off as to take a look toward that final, one of those fights around the Dragon Pit.
Yeah, this is the first instance of the Wukong ult in the Beyblade pit, and with that eliminated Eminem immediately. This was also the steal, the accidental steal, I suppose, coming from the Maokai's ultimate. And with that, though, it was quite close during the early game, but again, the Varus was untouched. Lil V did amazing and consistent as usual.
I actually really liked Hana's play as well when it came to this Gragas, especially earlier on. We talked about that Predator, Body Slam, Flash combo before that, 5-minute mark. Went and found a double knock up in the river. It translated into the first kill for Lil V off that point. And unfortunately, the Corki and Misfortune, though, Jimmy was able to stay safe. We never really saw the team try and play around that package when it was available for some of these objective fights. He actually used it very defensively for positioning, so they just weren't able to, I guess, get full value out of the pick as they were waiting for him to scale up on items. And the Wukong in the PCS is absolutely deadly. I still think it is sitting close to 100% win rate. It has only one loss here so far, but it has been accelerating when it comes to pickups here, as Rest will be getting the MVP on the champion.
It has actually enabled a lot of the top laners that we saw that is a little bit low-key to shine in towards the game. So the Wukong pick in the PCS has been very effective in disrupting the backline, and because of, again, 2 spin to win in his kit, now it just really enables a lot more flexibility when it comes to the long-drawn fights.
Yeah, you get that bit of a quick Beyblade. It's him activating his the power within as he gets himself
Let
that
it
second
rip.
knockup. Oh boy, now we just need the Garen composition to come on there with a Draven with
That
the
would be
spinning
lovely.
axes. You got everything possibly, but back on topic here, it is J-Team that are going to get 7th place when it comes to the playoff bracket, and HKA are going to be falling down to 8th, still in the playoffs though. That was the